We see this in our culture now. People who feel like they're defenseless will immediately gravitate towards people who act like they're powerful. And so Sanballat and Tobiah pretended to have power, and so all the people in the city whose walls were destroyed really made their life worth living, made them rich, made them powerful. So I would ask you in your life, do you have a Sanballat? Do you have somebody who is resisting the move of God in your life? It feels like anytime you talk about going to church, or anytime you talk about Jesus, or anytime that you just get resistance from them. Well, that's because they benefit from your powerlessness. That's because they benefit from you being weak. But the truth is we are weak. The truth is we are defenseless on our own. Because you know what? Nehemiah came, and for 12 years he was basically the governor of Jerusalem. And he made all these reformations. He rebuilt the temple and restored all the proper processes of sacrifice and worship. And he run out Sanballat and Tobiah and everybody else who was benefiting from their poor state. But by the end of the book, we'd love to see it say, and they continued on in holiness and great esteem towards God. But they reverted back to rebellion and disrespect towards the temple and things of God. When God says, if you're unfaithful to me, I'll scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me, and that's a lot of if you, then I. If you do this, then I do this. Well, here's the great thing, is that not only Nehemiah, but this entire Old Testament, all the stories point to one man, and that man is Jesus. The whole Old Testament is simply a red carpet to Jesus of Nazareth. This story even more so, more than I'd ever noticed before. It blew me away when I started having the realization and the revelation that Nehemiah was in the kingdom with the king in a very comfortable, powerful, favorable place. And he learns about a people in a distant land, and he says, hey, king, will you send me to help them? Will you send me to use my hands and my body to restore? Does that not sound like Jesus? Does that not sound like Jesus sitting in the kingdom with God and us down here in this broken, distant land, and him sending himself to die for us? I don't know where you stand with Jesus today. Like I said earlier, some of us have been walking with, knowing of God. I knew of God for a very long time. Most of my life I've known of Jesus. I've known a lot about this book, but it's only been in the past handful of years that I've actually known Jesus. And that changes everything. Before I knew Jesus and I just knew God, I saw him as this angry, disgruntled dictator who was ready to punish me the moment I saw this, if you, then I. And I knew I couldn't live up to the standards of perfection and holiness. I knew that I needed someone to stand in the gap for me, but instead of actually seeking out that and submitting myself to it, I just grew very angry towards God. And I kept thinking, I need to be different. I kept thinking, I need to stop. After every overdose, after every incarceration, after every broken relationship, I thought, I'm not going to do this again. And then I would do it again. But let me tell you, you can't think your way into new ways of living. You have to live your way into new ways of thinking. Until you start just doing it, like it says right here, I was terrified, but. I want to do this thing, but. I don't think I have it, but. Until I just start acting like I'm supposed to, I will not start thinking like I'm supposed to. But once it was right down Madison right here. I just submitted myself to this program. I just walked in. I gave them my phone. I gave them a lot of my clothes. I gave them my addiction to coffee and nicotine. And I said, I'm going to do what you tell me to do today. And then I did that for 14 months. And before I knew it, I was doing the things I was supposed to do, and I wasn't doing the things I wasn't supposed to do. So I'm going to end here, and I'm going to ask you, do you keep thinking in different ways than you're acting? Just flip it. Just start acting, and it'll change the way that you think. This process of salvation and redemption, it can't just happen in your head. It has to happen in your heart too. So we're going to celebrate this Savior that we're talking about with communion today. And there might be some of you in the room who know of Jesus but don't know Jesus. And you probably still have a cup in your hand, because I think everybody just took one on their way in. But you know, the Word says to not take communion in an unworthy manner. And not knowing Jesus would be in an unworthy manner. But I don't want to scare you. I want to invite you to change that. And I want to invite you to change that